I paid Wix $34 a month. That is $400 a year. And I hate the product. Like, I would never recommend that you use Wix. And so why did I pay them this amount of money? And how did they get me to do it? So I think this reveals the secret to pricing. And I learned it from Wix and I want to share with you. Okay, so here we go. I know the intro was a little dramatic, but I feel a little dramatic. So here's what I think the secret to pricing is. The secret to pricing is realizing that people do not want to pay you. They do not want to pay you. And it is your job to convince them to pay you. There's not a world by which I'm like, I love this product and I'm just excited to give them money. Like, I hated Wix and yet I gave them money. And how they got me to do this was it was required. If I was going to continue with Wix after the sunk costs that I put into building something, I needed to pay them money or I had to quit. That was it. And this is a playbook that we know, right? This is basically enterprise playbook. If you want to use a software product, typically B2B, you need roles and permissions. You need security. You need privacy. And so you can't use the product without paying them for it for those features. It's not optional. It's not like, I love this feature. I really want advanced analytics. Nope. It's that if you want to use the product, you need that feature. And that's what Wix figured out. And they figured it out twice. So the first time was with responsive, where I had to rebuild the site if I was going to be successful in Wix, and I had to get to a paid plan. And the second time was with storage. And this is a playbook that we know Dropbox and Google Drive use, which is like, look, it just doesn't work if you don't upgrade. We just can't hold all of your stuff. And so the site I was building had a lot of pictures and videos. And if I wanted to continue with Wix, at some point there was something that said, look, we just can't hold your pictures and videos. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I upgraded to the $34 a month SKU, even though I don't like Wix. And even though I rebuilt the whole site again, not in Wix. Obviously just should have figured out the first time, but used Claude Code, Open Code in order to build the site in a really lovely way. It actually turned out that it was delightful to do, even though it was for the third time. And here is our Radish for Sale website. Now, I really love it. And it was responsive the first shot. We didn't even have to tell it, be responsive, right? And so this is a lovely, gorgeous site that, we had to edit and things, but was fun while doing it. Now I'm going to show you the site from Wix. This is where I landed with Wix. I'm sure we would have made some small changes, but obviously not as good of a website as the one we coded and obviously not responsive. So even the Wix Studio thing, which was like, oh, it's going to be responsive, just had tons of problems. So the key insight to pricing here is that you have to appreciate that your users do not want to pay you. And even if they really, really like you, it's going to be hard to get them to pay you. If I can pay Wix on something that I didn't even like, I hated the experience while going through it, but I was forced to pay, you have to figure out these gated pathways basically that says, look, if you want to use our product, which is of high value to you, or we think it's of high value to you, you're going to have to pay us. And I think this requires a little bit of sunk costs, right? So Dropbox, they want to have you get your files in there and then you just keep adding more and then they gate you, right? So there is an element of if it's a free product, this actually helps because you get people to put in some sunk costs. You can gate them with an important feature, but I wouldn't, spend a lot of cycles thinking that the next feature that your teams are creating is going to create the outsized value for the company. Because unless it's really strategic to say this is the feature that will help people drive to a higher SKU, it's a feature that is going to help with your Net Promoter Score. It's a feature that's going to help holistically. People may recommend your product because of it, but people won't upgrade to pay for it. And I think that is something that we probably don't talk about enough if you're designing or spending a lot of time on a feature, is what is the psychology of value? And the psychology of value is that it really needs to be highly valuable to you at the moment of pain, such that you are willing to take a large cost. And the motivation for it has to be high enough to outweigh that cost. This is the essence of the 3 Bs that we teach at Irrational Labs, which is you have barriers and benefits, and those work in tandem. Look, if you have no barriers and no benefits, no one's going to do anything. There's not enough motivation to even get me over no benefits. But if you have a little bit of barriers, then you're going to need a little bit of the benefits to get me over that hump. Pricing is a huge, huge barrier. So if you have any kind of pricing gate, you need a lot of motivation to get me over the hump to pay you. And I think the light bulb with Wix for me is that it actually needs to feel still pretty required. And storage is a really nice example of this. Security, user permissions, a really nice example of this. And apparently responsive design is a nice example of this that I didn't fully realize. But these are the types of things that teams should be thinking about as they're building together. If you do want help with pricing, let me know. If you want help building a website, don't use Wix.